Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. So here we are in Innistrad, starting off with the original Innistrad block. This is a block I really enjoy and I have a lot to say about it, so I'm really excited about looking at the next 15 decks. So let's just make a start. We'll start with Carnival of Blood, which is a black and red deck. Let's look at the deck list here. So we've got 21 creatures, 5 sorceries, 2 enchantments, 4 artifacts, 4 instants, and 24 land, and a mana curve off to the side there. So, black-red vampires, and I think this is the first time that vampires are exclusive, are just like in mono-red. I think before this there's been a few like black-red vampires, but I don't think there'd been any just pure red vampires. And it makes sense for vampires to be in red. Basically, the way Innistrad works, it is sort of like a tribal set. There's a lot of kind of tribal synergies. It's not to the extent of, say, like legions or Lorwyn or anything like that, but there's a lot of tribal effects, and vampires are in black red. The other main tribes are humans, spirits, zombies, and werewolves, and we will not see any werewolves in these decks, which is, I guess, is a issue we'll raise when we get to talking about it. But anyway, so vampires are in black and red, which is kind of how we think about them these days. Anyway, it just goes together really well. I actually really liked it because the way I think Innistrad does it is that the red vampires are kind of like the sexy hedonist vampires, and like the black vampires are the more like refined noble ones, whereas I say the red ones are more out there, living the life essentially. So anyway, the foil face rare is Falconwrath Marauders, so 3 and 2 red for a 2/2 with flying and haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So this is like a big thing of the Innistrad vampires, is that they deal a lot with +1/+1 counters to represent them, drinking blood and getting stronger. And I think it makes sense because obviously you couldn't really do life gain on red vampires. That wouldn't really make much sense. So this them gaining +1/+1 counters is a good way of doing it, I think. But Falconwrath Marauders themselves, I think, are pretty good. They can swing the turn you play them. They could connect with an opponent, hopefully, because they've got flying. Makes them evasive. And then they got to being 4/4s, and then the next time it's a 6/6, and this snowballs very quickly. I can say from bitter experience, having been on both ends of Falconwrath Marauders. Yeah, they can get out of control like pretty quickly. I think that's a good foil face rare to start things off. Then we've got 2 Rakish Heirs, so 2 in a red for a 2/2. Whenever a vampire you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is really nice. Obviously, getting 2 of these out is really good because then you're getting the effect twice. Falconwrath Marauders loves this ability as well because then it's essentially getting +1/+1 counts from its ability and the Rakish Heir. So yeah, this is like a really good solid like vampire tribal payoff, really like Rakish Heir. And the thing is, like, I feel like you could play it like even with no other vampires, and like it's fine on its own, just to be like a 2/2 that gets +1/+1 counters, for 3 mana in red. I think that's perfectly fine at this time of the game. So the fact it's a board-wide buff is really nice. And then we have 3 a Blood Crazed Neonate, so 1 in a red for a 2/1. Has to attack every turn if able. So obviously super aggressive, creature. And again, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's greedy of me to wish this had haste. It would be definitely too good if it had haste. But yeah, again, I think it's pretty good. And again, like, if you're combining it with Rakish Heir, again, it can really kind of snowball out of control. I think, pretty good. Ends up getting pretty strong pretty quickly. And then we have 2 Crossway Vampires, so 1 and 2 red for a 3/2. When it ends the battlefield, target creature can't block this turn. Unfortunately, it doesn't have haste itself, so it can't really benefit from this ability. But obviously, you use this to set up like your other vampires getting through. So yeah, I think this is fine. Just a small blocking restriction on a 3/2 for 3. I think is perfectly fine at common in red at this time of the game. I feel like this is definitely the point where creatures are starting to get like a lot better. It's very rare, I think, at this point to start seeing creatures that are just kind of like outright, like bad or overcost or whatever. Mostly they're starting to get really good now, I think. And then we have Night Revel. I immediately say that, and then there's Night Revelers. So these are not bad. So it's 5 mana for a 4/4. It doesn't have a drawback. It has haste as long as an opponent controls a human. So this is okay. I mean, like, again, even if an opponent doesn't have a human, it's 5 mana for a 4/4 vampire, so it's kind of big, it's kind of beefy. It's fine. The ability is a nice payoff, but it's the thing, because it relies on an opponent controlling a particular creature type. You can't guarantee it. So I, in that regard, actually wish the bonus was like a little bigger, like maybe haste and trample, which is kind of what I feel it would get now if it was released now, and maybe some other ability. But I think this, again, at the time, this is perfectly fine, just to be just a 4/4, just big vampire. Move on to look at the black vampires now. So we've got 2 Falconwrath Nobles. So 3 in a black for a 2/2 flyer. Whenever Falconwrath Noble or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is kind of, I feel like, what the black vampires did more. They're like a lot more kind of subtle with just indirect life loss. Falconwrath Noble is great. I feel like if you get even like 2 triggers of this ability, it's pretty good. Obviously, if you have a huge combat, and this all kicks off, and you get a load of triggers of this, you're getting a bunch of life. Yeah, really, really good. Really like Falconwrath Noble. 2 Markov Patrician. This is just big Child of Night, really. So 2 in the black for a 3/1 lifelink. Yep, perfectly fine. Obviously a bit frail, but yeah, it's fine. It's fine. 2 Stromkirk Patrol, 4 in a black for a 4/3. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, kind of dipping into the red vampires there with its +1/+1 ability. But again, like the Night Revelers, it's just a big chunky vampire, which is perfectly fine, kind of what the deck wants. Because obviously it's good to play like the early aggressive vampires, but you might need something a bit fatter for like the mid game. 2 Vampire Interlopers, 1 in a black for a 2/1 fly. It can't block. Doesn't matter that it can't block. It's super aggressive and evasive. So yeah, this is again, like, perfectly fine. 2 Bloodseekers from M12. So 1 in a black for a 1/1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. This is going to sound really petty of me. I really wish this has got a new art in M12. So, because it clashes so much, like the very the Zendikar vampires, who look completely different from the Innistrad vampires. It just looks weird to me. It just clashes. Kind of wish it got new art, but that's such a small complaint. The card itself is absolutely great. It's Evil Soul Warden, basically, just a way of like draining an opponent of life. It's really good. A single Child of Night, so 1 in the black for a 2/1 lifelink. Yep, it's just smaller Markov Patrician. It's fine. And then a single Sengir vampire, absolutely the classic daddy vampire himself. 3 and 2 black for a 4/4 flyer. So air elemental stats, which is perfectly fine. And then kind of the old clunky vampire ability of whenever a creature dealt damage by it dies this turn, it gets +1/+1 counter. So yeah, it's fine. So a lot of actually kind of +1/+1 counters really in the deck. And Sengir Vampire is absolutely fine. Again, it's just like a big flyer, like Falconwrath Marauders. So it's just a big, evasive creature to hopefully close out the game. So the other end of the deck is Curse of Stalked Prey. So this is a really cool thing that Innistrad did, all these like curse auras. So 1 in a red, it's an aura curse, so it goes on a player. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to the enchanted player, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So it's another way of getting all your vampires getting +1/+1 counters. If you're playing like a big multiplayer game, this is a great political play as well. Put it on, the one player who's doing really well, everyone else attacks it because they're going to get benefits from doing it. So really good like political card. But yeah, in general, this is really good. Only 2 mana as well, because it just really benefits, and it's like such like someone will really want to get rid of this, because every time they get hit, your creature's getting even stronger and harder to deal with. So yeah, this is really good rare, I think. Single Traitorous Blood, 1 and 2 red. It's just Act of Treason. but it gives trample as well, which is perfectly good, perfectly good. And then 2 Vampiric Fury, 1 and a red. Vampire creature you control get +2/+0 and gain first strike turn. This is like a really strong combat trick for only 2 mana, a board wide. Not just +2/+0, because that's Trumpet Blast, that's fine. But also first strike as well. And I would say, like, even if you have 2 vampires out, this is like really good. Because because what I would say, if you had 1 vampire out, this is what's the spell I'm thinking of, like Thunderstrike, something like that. It's like a pump spell from, like, I think M11 or M12, where it's +2/+0 on first strike until end of turn for a single creature. So for this to potentially affect your whole board, giving first strike at instant speed is always such a good combat trick. Works either on the attack or the defense. Yeah, really, really good. This could definitely, like, really swing a combat, I think. Really good, there's 2 of them. A single Gruesome Deformity, a single black mana for an aura that goes on a creature, and it gets Intimidate. So this is a good thing to put on one of your vampires that care about hitting them. I think all the vampires obviously care about hitting your opponent, but say like Falconwrath Marauders or the Neonate or the heirs, the rakish heirs, like stuff like that, stuff that wants to get through and hit the opponent and get +1/+1 counters. So yeah, it's just nice there's 1 of them in here. A single Night Terrors, 2 and a black. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from them. They exile it. This feels a little out of place, but it's fine, I guess. Kind of would have just preferred, I don't know, maybe another Gruesome Deformity. Maybe this is just a kind of random. At least you're kind of revealing their hand. You're getting rid of a card. It's fine. And exiling it really matters, actually, in Innistrad block, just because there's so many effects that care about cards being in graveyards. 2 Tribute to Hungers, 2 and a black. Target opponent sacrifices a creature, and then you gain life equal to the toughness. So it's an edict effect at instant speed, which is actually pretty good. And the fact you're getting life off it as well is also perfectly fine. So yeah, I think this is okay. And then single Diabolic Tutor, 2 and 2 black to search your library for any card, put it straight into hand. Yep, this is really good. There's, almost, I'd say, every time this is going to be searching up either Falconwrath Marauders or like the Curse of Stalked Prey, like the 2 rares. But yeah, I mean, there's always situations where you might need something else, I suppose. Single Fireball, just to maybe close out a game. If you've done a lot of damage to vampires, just burn out your opponent or get a blocker out of the way or something. With Fireball, it's pretty much always just X to the opponent is the best option, I think. And then a single Tectonic Rift. I think this is really good as a spell, honestly. So 3 in a red, destroy a land, and creatures without flying can't block this turn. So this is exactly the kind of effect this deck wants, like super aggressive, attacking the vampires. You take away potentially all their blockers, and you're also blowing up a land at the very least. Even if they've got like a load of flyers, you're blowing up a land and sort of setting them back that way. So yeah, this is really again, like, it's a card the deck really wants. Single Cobbled Wings, 2 mana equipment. Gives the equipped creature flying, so yeah, put this on one of your vampires that's got a load of +1/+1 counters, make it evasive and even more threatening. 2 Mask of Avacyn, 2 mana equipment, gives the equipped creature +1/+2 and hexproof, so perfect for protecting your vampires who have now got a load of counters on them, and a lot of eggs in one basket, essentially just protects them from removal. Really cheap, actually, I think. The equip cost may be a little expensive, but giving hexproof is such a strong ability. And a single Traveler's Amulet for a bit of land fixing. Just pay 1, sacrifice it, search for a basic land, and put it into hand, then shuffle. And then 12 Mountains and 12 Swamps. So what could have been? So this is I think really well put together, this deck. There's not much in it I would change, honestly. Maybe as an alternate rare, Falconwrath Marauder is so good though. I was thinking maybe Stromkirk Noble. So it's 1 red for a 1/1. Can't be blocked by humans, which is very conditional. And again, it has this vampire ability. When it deals damage to a player, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So that maybe, but I think Falconwrath Marauders is ultimately the better choice. I was thinking Bump in the Night. Just because it's a black spell. It makes an opponent lose life straight away, and it has flashback for 5 in a red. Because flashback is back in Innistrad. If you're not familiar with Innistrad, flashback makes its return from. Well, it's been in Time Spiral before this. I was going to say Odyssey block, but it was in Time Spiral as well. And it just matches the two colors. I thought would be okay. I was also thinking Brimstone Volley because there's actually not a lot of removal in this deck, despite it being black red. There's the Tribute to Hunger, and like that's about it really. There's no essentially like a Doomblade effect or anything. So Brimstone Volley is, well, there's a Fireball as well, I suppose. But Brimstone Volley is just kind of a cheapish removal spell. It does 3 damage, but if a creature has died this turn, it does 5 damage instead because it has this Morbid ability, and Morbid is going to be a keyword that like a whole deck is based around, as we'll see as we look at these Innistrad decks. But I was thinking that, or just from M12, you could have just had like Doomblade effects and stuff. But with these what could have been screens, I like to keep it to the set where set the deck's been released in. So in summary, yeah, I like it. Black red vampires, what's not to like? I say the lack of kind of removal is like a little disappointing. But aside from that, I think you got like some really solid creatures in here, like some really solid tribal interactions. Yeah, it's obviously a deck that's trying to win via combat. And just being as aggressive as possible. So yeah, pretty good. I think pretty good. I'm going to be pretty biased towards these Innistrad decks if I'm going to be honest, because I love the block so much. It's it's a real winner for me. But yeah, anyway, so that was my thoughts on the deck. If you've got any stories, thoughts, comments, opinions about this deck, or just Innistrad in general, really stick a comment below. Always like reading those. I'm going to be back next time. I'm going to look at another Innistrad intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day.